walking along the river today, and I asked this question. So what do you think is going to happen when Trump ends his presidency in 2024? I'm just going by what it looks like. Who do you think is going to be his sort of replacement? Because the GOP has been relying on Trump basically as sort of life support for that party. Without Trump, they'd probably be nowhere. And look at the usual suspects they keep throwing up every year, like I don't know, that one that looks a bit like Count Dracula, Marco Rubio, and I can't remember that evangelical Christian, but there's so many of them. But anyway, there's the usual suspects, with the usual suspects not being of much benefit to the party, and in that I think nobody's particularly interested in them anymore. And that their base, the GOP, the Republican Party base, tends to be, I think they tend to be white right-wingers. So they think probably that the one that's going to give a big FU to everybody, which is never the case, but a big FU to the Democratic Party and all of that, would be somebody who is outside of the party, just like Trump was. And so that's who they'll probably go for, somebody outside the party. So who could that be? So the sad thing is, of course, that Trump is not doing anything more for his base except lie and pretend that he is doing stuff and that he cares, pretending that he cares for his base. He's not really doing anything for them, and so they're actually, to vote for him is voting against their interests. But then look at the Democratic Party. They've abandoned the public too. And that's where I get to a meme that I saw yesterday, and I'll show you. And doesn't that perfectly describe how it is? And that is exactly what is the problem. Trump 2020, because fuck you a second time, basically. I mean, they've actually gotten somebody, I don't know how they did it, but they managed to get somebody worse than Hillary Clinton. Which really in many ways just demonstrates, like we've said before, that they don't want to win, and they'd probably be happy for Trump to wreck the joint and put in all sorts of awful authoritarian measures, and then they can complain about it, but really they're quite happy with it. This is the Democratic Party. And then if they ever get in again, which is looking very unlikely with the kind of people they're picking, but if they ever get in again, it'll be they'll have all the authoritarian measures in place, and they won't undo them, and they can blame Trump and the Republican Party when people complain about it. But he's done their dirty work for them, basically, Donald Trump. But the thing is that I don't envision, unless the Democratic Party actually becomes a party that is not a war party, that is not a corporate-owned party, and I don't see that happening at all, but just say that's the only way they would ever be any alternative to Trump. But that meme, because fuck you a second time, is exactly the problem. There is no alternative. And so it's almost like that when I was talking about that video I did about a week or so ago about people loving apocalyptic movies because they want to burn everything down. It's sort of an expression of themselves in a way. It's kind of like a death drive. And then there's that quote that I put into that same video, which was the village that does not embrace the child. Basically, the child is going to burn down the village to feel its warmth. That's not the exact quote, but that's sort of similar to what it says. That it's an African proverb. So basically, the very, very poor white right-wingers are, they're tired also of the lying of the duopoly. And so who are they going to go for? They're going to go for somebody who is an outright racist, that is pretending to go fuck you to the establishment and is pretending to quote-unquote drain the swamp, when Donald Trump is the swamp, and he's actually put more swamp creatures in the swamp, if we can use that analogy, that metaphor. He's put more of them in there. So, and sadly, a lot of those people who are his base, they pay attention to his words, not his actions. And so he just goes around doing his little campaign pep talks and making out like he's just one of the guys, he's just one of the people, and he's going to help you all, and F you to those Democrats, and, F you to the swamp. I'm draining the swamp, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, just lying like a rug. Those poor white people who follow, those poor, literally poor poverty, those people who are in dire poverty and who do not believe the politicians within the GOP and the Democratic Party, they will just go for someone, even if they on some level know that he's lying to them. They probably think it's better than voting for, say, the other Republican, Joe Biden, who definitely not only is he in cognitive decline, but he's not as overtly a racist. He's a racist, but he's not overt like Trump. He's not sticking it to these minority groups, which is sadly people that are in that sort of situation that are racist will blame all the minority groups for their issues. They'll punch down instead of punching up. They won't look at the government as the problem. They look at minority groups, and of course the media and the GOP feed into that narrative. They promote that narrative because they don't want people looking at them. So anyway, without the GOP, without Trump, the GOP would be almost an irrelevant party, and in many ways it actually knows that it's irrelevant already, and without Trump it probably would be in the wilderness forever and a day. So without Trump they wouldn't be in government, and so that means that the base, there's been some surveys being taken around of who they would like to see after Trump. This is assuming Trump gets in for a second term, and I'd say that's almost a sure thing. There's been a survey I went around, and the people that they wanted to see in as the nominee was his daughter, Ivanka Trump. I knew she had presidential plans, and that's why she's been knocking around with him in the White House, even though she has no experience at all. So there's Ivanka Trump, and then there's, as somebody calls him, Eddie Munster, Donald Trump Jr. So there's those two, and of course they're seen as outside the Republican Party, so they've got a shoe-in for sure. And then there's Mike Pence. People want to see Mike Pence for some reason, and that probably is because they have a large evangelical Christian base, and he's a Christian in quotes fascist. So that'd be a lot of fun if Mike Pence got in, because he believes in the rapture, I think. So does Mike Pompeo. So there's him. Who else is there? That's right. Mike Pompeo also is another one, and Nikki Haley, both rabid warmongers. And Mike Pompeo believes in the rapture. So he says. I don't even know if that's true. I don't know if they'd say that sort of thing so that they can hook into the evangelical Christian base and the Christian fascist. I don't know. But anyway, so there's something to look forward to, isn't it? That's something to really look forward to. President Ivanka Trump or President Donald Trump Jr., like a dynasty, just like George Bush and George Bush Sr. Why not have a dynasty? I mean, they were trying to do that with Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. Why not? So I mean, it's quite possible and probable that it will be somebody outside of the party. But here's another thought too, and this could be the case. I don't know if Erik Prince is biding his time. Erik Prince used to be the CEO of Blackwater, which is an awful sadistic mercenary group that's private mercenaries that go in and conduct awful sorts of war crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he's sort of wants to have the Afghanistan war privatized. That's Erik Prince. Now, I don't think they call themselves Blackwater anymore. I think they call themselves Academy or something like that. But he is sort of going around the world, sort of trying to introduce his mercenary organization into, slot it into all sorts of things if he can. But he would be a real fascist, Erik Prince, and he's the brother of Betsy DeVos, who is the education person and is trying to basically destroy public education. So Erik Prince, could be somebody, the kind of person that they might actually see as someone who could, it would become the Erik Prince party, I mean, that's sort of what it's becoming now. It's not even about the Republican Party anymore. It's like the Donald Trump Party. And I could imagine at some point somebody like Erik Prince, or someone who is probably more eloquent, and that wouldn't take much to be more eloquent than Donald Trump, more eloquent and more intelligent than Donald Trump, who's a real fascist, who could go into the running and take a leaf out of Donald Trump's book and basically be more eloquent, but dumb it down. It would be a third sort of Erik Prince 2020, Erik Prince 2024, because fuck you a third time. I mean, that could be the case. Who knows? I don't know. He hasn't really put his hat into the ring, but there's anything could happen now. After Trump gets in for that second term, he really clamps down in an authoritarian way on the public, with the surveillance and with probably arresting people, possibly even arresting journalists. A real authoritarian or a real neo-fascist kind of a government. He could even try and change things so he has a third term. Like, I could see something like that happening. I don't know how you would go about that, but I could see him doing something like that. They're already trying to put off the election at the end of the year because of coronavirus, and I think that one of the reasons they're doing that is because he wants the economy to be back to normal before the election, so that people don't blame him for their situation, and then that might affect the outcome of the election. So that could be how it goes. That he puts off this election at the end of the year. And I'm not sure how he would do that, but I could see that happening. And I could also see him creating a third term for himself, because I think he's really, initially when he first got in, I don't think he even thought he would win. And I also didn't think he actually really even wanted to be president. And I think Melania Trump probably just thinks it's pretty hideous too. But then I think he really got to like it, because he kind of muddled his way through reading teleprompters, and he left it to the generals and whatever else. He's just left it to other people to kind of sort things out for him to some degree. I'm not saying that he's not in control of pushing war. He definitely is, and he's paid back Sheldon Adelson in a way by creating a terrible situation for Iran with 800 economic sanctions and warships in the Persian Gulf and all of that. And I think when he gets in 2020, he's probably going to attack Iran, or just continue on that warmongering. But I could see him paying back Sheldon Adelson for helping him get in by attacking Iran. That's not happy news, but I think I just kind of thought to myself, they're going to make sure that they have, because it looks like the Democratic Party is never going to get their act together, and everybody should abandon it and be voting, and form grassroots movements and just basically abandon the Democratic Party as they have abandoned the people. Like right now with that Heroes bailout, they've abandoned people, the public. So they should be abandoned too, and left to just flail, and vote for a movement for a People's Party, or when finally they get it together in 2024, and at the present time I'd go for Gloria La Riva and Leonard Peltier, because Joe Biden isn't going to win. He's not going to win. He's barely keeping it together. And if he selects Hillary Clinton as his VP, well, that'll be the end of it, because nobody likes Hillary Clinton, and she's a war criminal, and she's awful. So if the Democratic Party is going to keep putting up people like that, either because they don't want to win and they just want Donald Trump to wreck the joint so they can step in, and then they've got all those awful things in place, or that they're just so ridiculous they don't even care. I don't know what it is with them, but I can't see them getting it together at all, which means that the GOP and the Republican Party is just going to continue to win, particularly if they select people that are like Erik Prince, possibly, or I don't know about Donald Trump Jr. I don't think he has the same kind of. I wouldn't say Donald Trump has. I don't know. Donald Trump has this ways like Teflon. Nothing seems to be able to touch him. No matter how stupid he comes across, no matter if he asks, if he suggests people drink bleach. I mean, nothing seems to stick with Donald Trump.
Why don't we go ahead and do it? Let's do it. Yes, please.
trying to say is that because nothing sticks to Donald Trump, and he can just speak like a baby sometimes, like he speaks like he's 10 years old. I don't know how it seems to work for him, but it does. It does work for him. And I don't know if Donald Trump Jr. is just going to come across as too polished and too kind of slimy, and they're not going to like him. But then again, he's Trump's son, so they seem to really love Donald Trump, I think. I think they love him, I don't know. Or they just kind of think he'll do. I don't know, it's really sad, and I just think, God, this is going to get so bad. You can just see it now. It's, see the writing on the wall. I don't know, and I sort of really worry about how are people going to survive, because they really don't care. They really show that they, Nancy Pelosi and all of those people and the pretend progressives in the Democratic Party, they just really don't care. It's kind of scary. So anyway, that's kind of a sad thought about 2024, that there'll be another GOP selection, and I think that they will win again, because the Democratic Party is no alternative. It will not give people Medicare for all, even in a pandemic. And Joe Biden said he would veto Medicare for all if ever it crossed his desk, basically. So there you have it. They've set themselves up for Republican after Republican or after Republican president. And the only way to break that awful duopoly up is to have firstly a grassroots movement, general strikes, to bring down this dreadful disaster capitalism, and third parties that are viable third parties. Like if all the Sanders movement moves to Movement for a People's Party, then that may actually, at the very least, it might shake up the duopoly that they have to start having some sort of progressive policies. If all the Sanders people go to the Movement for a People's Party, I like, if it has real socialist policies and it continues to be anti-imperialist, then great. I think that would be a good thing. If the Movement for a People's Party end up dropping their anti-imperialist position, then they've been co-opted and you just write them off. Anyway, so this is just some happy thoughts I had when I was walking along the river. I tend to sometimes let my mind wander to things like that, because it just sort of seems like the writing's on the wall. And when I saw that meme, Trump 2020 because fuck you a second time, I just thought that's exactly right. And there we have it right there. It just sums it all up. And then from then on, it'll just be awful kind of neo-fascists and authoritarian figures that are more smooth than Trump is as selections for the nominee for the Republican Party, and with no real alternative there from the Democratic Party. I mean, it's scary. It's a really scary thing. And of course, what that means for the environment is particularly scary, what it means for the climate crisis as well. Not that the Democratic Party is winning any awards for that at all. Anyway, so that was all I really wanted to say. Happy. So thanks so much for watching. My name is Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the notifications bell. Check out the videos that come up at the end screen there with the credits with the Faint Signals from Vega. Sometimes there's some good suggestions there. Well, I hope there are. They're all my videos. If I don't like them, who else is going to like them? So check them out. So thanks so much for watching. Till next time. Bye for now.